Picture this. You're standing in the middle of a room you've never seen, yet somehow know. The wallpaper peels in patterns that mimic constellations. A ticking clock spins backward, and a familiar voice, long gone from your waking life, whispers your name from behind a mirror. You turn, but no one is there. Your hands are too heavy to lift. The ground is made of water. You're not drowning, but you're not breathing either. And then you wake up. But here's the strange part: you don't shake it off, because some part of you knows that dream was trying to tell you something. Something buried, something real. Why is it that within the chaos of dreams, talking animals, infinite staircases, cities that collapse into oceans, you feel the presence of truth more deeply than in your day-to-day life? Why do dreams, bizarre and surreal as they are, sometimes cut closer to the bone than a therapist ever could? Is it possible that when you close your eyes, you are not escaping reality, but entering a more honest one? Freud called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Jung believed they were messages from the self, coded symbols emerging from the depths of the psyche. But what if dreams are more than psychological leftovers or symbolic puzzles? What if they are mirrors, raw, unfiltered, showing you not who you pretend to be, but who you actually are? Every night behind your eyelids, the masks fall, your ego sleeps, your memories melt into metaphors, and what rises chaotic, uncomfortable, haunting is your unedited self. So ask yourself, what do your dreams say about you that your waking self refuses to admit? Why do certain themes haunt you over and over? Why do you meet the same strangers, relive the same places, wake up breathless from fears that don't match your day? And here's the paradox. The things we most need to understand about ourselves are sometimes only spoken in the language we understand least. So the question isn't just what your dreams mean, but rather why they bother speaking to you at all. What do they know that you don't? What if your dreams aren't distractions, but invitations? What if ignoring them is like ignoring a handwritten letter from your soul? And now you stand at the edge of that letter, creases worn, words bleeding through the envelope, waiting to be opened. Let's go deeper, because the truth behind your dreams might just be the truth behind you. By day, we are narrators. We curate the story of ourselves, polishing our identity with every word, every choice, every scroll. We wear names, titles, and routines like armor. But at night, when sleep dissolves our defenses, the story fractures. Something older wakes up. That something? The unconscious. Carl Jung described the unconscious not as a trash bin for forgotten thoughts, but as a vast ocean of symbols, instincts, and truths the ego cannot bear to hold. And dreams, they are the waves that rise from that ocean, strange, symbolic, often unsettling, trying to deliver messages from the deep. But we live in a culture that distrusts the unseen, the rational, the conscious, the spreadsheet, the algorithm. That is where we feel safe. We have become fluent in surface logic, but illiterate in the language of dreams. Here lies the hidden problem. We have severed ourselves from our inner world. We've made a deal with the modern world: efficiency over insight, productivity over depth, explanation over intuition. In doing so, we've exiled the parts of ourselves that don't make sense. But those parts don't disappear. They return, not through status updates or schedules, but through dreams. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer believed that what drives human life isn't reason, but will, an irrational force beneath our thoughts, pulling the strings. Freud echoed this with his theory of repressed desire. Jung went further. Our dreams are not only about trauma or wish fulfillment, but the psyche's attempt to restore balance. They are messages from the self to the self, a whisper from the part of you you've tried to silence. And yet, we ignore them. Why? Because dreams don't flatter the ego. They don't play by the rules of polite society. They bring forth shadow your anger, your fear, your lust, your longing, clothed in strange metaphors. A bleeding animal, a burning house, a lost child. It is no accident that these images disturb you. They're meant to. They bypass your logic. They speak in the primal tongue you knew before language, image, symbol, sensation. Nietzsche once said, "There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy." The same could be said of dreams. They are your mind's way of revealing what you refuse to look at while awake. But here is where it gets more unsettling. Your dream self might be more honest than your waking self. In dreams, you do not hesitate. You do not censor. You act out impulses, fears, and desires that daylight suppresses. You might commit crimes. You might cry for people you don't know. You might scream in a voice you've never heard before. Who is that person, and why are they you? This is where Jean-Paul Sartre enters the scene. Sartre argued that we are condemned to be free, meaning we invent ourselves through our choices, and yet we are haunted by the infinite versions of ourselves we could have been. Dreams expose these versions, the unlived lives, the rejected selves, the inner contradictions we dare not admit aloud. In this way, dreams are not just about processing the past. They're about confronting the possible. They reveal the psychic conflicts that shape who you are and who you might become. The problem is, we're conditioned not to listen. We medicate sleep. We rush past dream journals. We label it all random. But randomness is a defense mechanism, a shield against meaning, because meaning makes us responsible. And if dreams do mean something, then we must ask, what is it we've been avoiding? Could it be that the dream world is not a distortion of reality, but a deeper reality we've forgotten how to see? And if that's true, what parts of yourself have you buried so deep they can only speak to you while you sleep? What happens when you stop listening to yourself? Not the curated, social self, the one that responds politely, that posts pictures with filters, that follows the rules of the day, but the ancient self, the one who speaks in fire and symbols, the one who dreams. The silence begins softly. You brush off the nightmare. You laugh off the strange vision. You call it just a dream. But each time you do, the rift inside you grows wider. You become fluent in avoidance. You get better at forgetting. And eventually, you begin to mistake that forgetting for peace. But the psyche does not forget. It watches. It waits. And it finds other ways to speak. The first consequence is emotional dissonance. You wake up feeling heavy, uneasy, sad for no reason. You carry a sense of unfinished mourning or silent rage you can't explain. That's not your mood, it's a message. Your unconscious has been trying to tell you something, but it's been ignored for too long. So it rebels. You begin to feel detached from your actions, your relationships, your very sense of self. You laugh when you don't feel like laughing. You say yes when you mean no. You wake up tired, even after a full night's sleep. This isn't laziness, it's psychic exhaustion. Your conscious life is out of sync with your inner life. You are split, and the dream is the evidence of that fracture. But it doesn't stop at the personal. There is a collective consequence. A society that refuses to dream is a society that cannot reflect. It becomes obsessed with productivity, measurement, and surface-level achievement. It loses its myth, its poetry, its soul. Aldous Huxley warned of this. In Brave New World, he described a world where suffering is eliminated through distraction, but at the cost of depth. No one dreams there. No one questions. No one aches. And without that ache, there is no growth, no transformation. When we suppress dreams, we suppress our own inner compass. Instead, we outsource meaning to algorithms. We let culture tell us who we should be, what we should buy, what we should fear. But the deeper you drift from your dream self, the easier it is to become programmable. Because dreams don't obey capitalism. They don't sell you things. They don't flatter your ego. They confront you with what is, not what you pretend to be. And that confrontation is exactly what modern life tries to eliminate. Here's where neuroscience enters the story. Researchers studying REM sleep have discovered that dreams serve a vital function in emotional regulation and memory consolidation. But they also found something strange. When people are deprived of dream sleep, they don't just become irritable, they lose access to meaning. Their sense of self becomes confused. Their moral reasoning deteriorates. In other words, Dreaming is not optional, it's foundational, not just for rest, but for identity. And yet, the cultural message remains: ignore it, sleep less, work more, laugh off the dream. But what if ignoring your dreams means ignoring yourself? What if that nightmare isn't just anxiety but a repressed memory trying to heal? What if that recurring image, the one you keep having but refuse to explore, isn't random, but sacred? This is the paradox. The very parts of ourselves we are most afraid of are the ones that hold the key to our healing. By silencing the dream, we silence the only part of us brave enough to speak the truth without permission. And so we drift. We feel lost but don't know why. We crave meaning but search for it in noise. We sense something is missing, but we never stop to listen to what we've exiled. So here's the urgent question. If your dreams are the last honest mirror you have, how long will you keep turning away? Imagine this. One night, you decide not to brush off the dream. You don't reach for your phone the second you wake. You sit in the stillness, and in that silence, something flickers like a faint echo of a language you once spoke but forgot. A forest you used to walk through as a child, barefoot and wild. A face you've never seen, but somehow recognize. This is the beginning of rebellion, not in the streets, but in the soul. To break free from a life anesthetized by habit, you must do the unthinkable. Feel again, not just what's easy, especially not what's easy. You must be willing to step into the chaotic, uncomfortable terrain of your inner world, the irrational, the symbolic, the surreal. Because dreams are not lies, they're metaphors. And metaphor is how the soul speaks. Carl Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. He didn't mean they were random flickers of memory. He meant they were the living bridge between your ego and the deeper self, the one buried beneath social masks and inherited stories. And here's the radical truth. Every dream, even the terrifying ones, is trying to heal you. The monster you run from? It's your unprocessed grief. The endless staircase you can't climb. It's your paralysis in the face of choice. The voice you hear but can't understand. It's your intuition, waiting for you to remember how to listen. So, how do you rebel? You begin by remembering. Start with a journal by your bed. No filters, no editing. As soon as you wake, write. Even fragments matter. A color, a feeling, a single word. Over time, your unconscious will start speaking louder because it knows someone is listening. Next, learn to decode the symbols. Don't Google them. That makes your dream universal when it is deeply personal. Instead, ask yourself, what does this image mean to me? If you dream of a dog, is it comfort or fear? If you dream of the ocean, is it freedom or drowning? Only your soul knows the code. And then sit with the discomfort. If a dream unsettles you, it's doing its job. It's shaking loose the lies you've built your identity on. It's daring you to see what's underneath. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote that we are seldom truly awake, that we pass through life as if in a dream, mistaking shadows for substance. But in the strange reversal of the psyche, it is the dream that wakes you, and the life lived in performance that lulls you into unconsciousness. So you ask, what do I do with these dreams? You honor them, write poetry from them, make art from them. Let them guide your questions, your healing, your decisions. Don't use dreams as escape, use them as confrontation. Dreams won't always give you answers. Sometimes they'll give you better questions, like, who am I when no one is watching? What have I buried to be accepted? What do I truly desire beneath the desires I was told to have? To rebel is to reclaim inner authority. It is to say, I no longer outsource truth to the external world. I will consult the oracle within, and that oracle speaks in night visions, strange symbols, uncanny intuitions. This isn't New Age fluff. It's ancient. Prophets, sages, philosophers all revered dreams. They knew what modernity has forgotten. You are more than your conscious mind. And if you wish to evolve, you must learn the language of your unseen self. Because here's the secret most never learn. The dreamer is not passive. You are not merely visited by dreams. You are the architect. The images that arise are drawn from your own soul's blueprint. To study them is to study yourself, not the version that performs, but the one that remembers. And once you remember, you cannot go back. The illusion cracks. The mask falls. The fog lifts, and in its place is something terrifying and beautiful. A self no longer shaped by programming, but by truth. What if the version of you that walks through the day like brushing your teeth, scrolling your feed, nodding in meetings is only a fragment? Not a lie, but not the whole truth either. What if the full, untamed, unedited version of you only wakes when the world turns quiet, and the gates of reason are momentarily unguarded? What if the real you is asleep and dreaming you awake? This is the final paradox. In dreams, we forget who we are. But maybe that forgetting is the way we remember, because the self you present to the world is curated, rehearsed, often built from other people's expectations. But the self you meet in dreams, that one is raw, symbolic, mythic. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care for logic. It emerges as it is, wounded and wise, wild and whole. You've been taught to believe that truth must be linear, spoken in plain language. But the psyche, the soul, speaks in riddles, in color and shape, in fear and ecstasy. In stories where gravity bends and time melts, it tells the truth slant, because that's the only way we can bear it. And here is that slant truth. You are not broken. You are divided. There is a part of you that plays the role, that lives by clocks and scripts and rules. But there is another part, the dreamer, the witness, the wild one. And they've been trying to reach you. Every time you ignored that recurring nightmare, you ignored a call to heal. Every time you laughed off a strange dream, you closed the door on your own subconscious. Every time you believed that was just a dream, you denied yourself a sacred mirror. But what if you turned around? What if you looked directly at the beast, the shadow, the labyrinth? You'd see it wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to free you. Because here's the truth you've always felt, but never dared say aloud. Dreams are your memory of the soul. They are where the child in you still dances, where the parts you lost to trauma or time still breathe, where your unlived lives, your true desires, your suppressed gifts, your silent truths still wait for resurrection. Viktor Frankl once wrote that man's deepest need is not pleasure, not power, but meaning. And meaning isn't handed to you. It's uncovered in dreams, in symbols, in silence. So stop asking whether a dream is real. That's the wrong question. Ask instead, what is this dream revealing that I've refused to see while awake? Because the greatest tragedy is not a nightmare. It's a life lived wide awake, yet completely asleep. And the greatest rebellion, to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That's what dreams offer, not escapism, but awakening. And once you awaken, not in your sleep, but in your life, everything changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop playing roles. You stop mistaking safety for peace. And you begin to speak with a voice that was buried in your throat. You begin to choose not from fear, but from knowing. You begin to walk the path not laid out for you, but carved by your soul. Because the real you, the dreamer, the poet, the visionary has always been here, waiting. And now you remember. Now you return